So hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Emotional Resilience in Times of War and Crisis. I feel really humbled to be able to contribute, even in the smallest way, to this kind of situation that I know for all of us is beyond anything we could have imagined we would ever witness, probably in these times. And as we were preparing for this, pulling it all together, I was overcome by such gratitude that we actually have something we can offer that we know will alleviate suffering. So what we are going to share with you today, as I believe Tammy already mentioned, is a practice that is simple, is very simple to learn, it's very quickly explained, and at the same time is very effective. And like many simple and effective methods that are quickly learned and quickly explained, it's also something where you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. So we're going to give you an opportunity today to practice, to have a first taste and experience of how this can immediately alleviate emotional stress. And at the same time, I also want to mention that it's a practice that deepens with time and where your system kind of gets the hang of it, where your nervous system learns to actually use this space to co-regulate itself again and again. Before we go into the actual practice, I want to talk a little bit about why the practice has the format it has and why, in my experience, it's life-saving in times of crisis and yeah, intense crisis such as war. So what happens is that it's a natural part of life that it can be overwhelming. And we all know that, and we all experience situations in our normal life that are emotionally overwhelming. And we know our system can somehow process it and deal with it. In my experience, that there is a limit as to what an individual system can process. And because of this, we as humans are actually social beings who need each other to process life, to regulate our nervous system. So the practice we're going to introduce you to uses this very simple principle of co-regulation. There's something almost magical that happens when we turn to one another. And I know many of you are present here, are caregivers and therapists, and you know about this magic. What happens when one heart turns towards a person in distress, and how, when the person in distress accepts that offer, which very often is like a nonverbal offer, something in their nervous system happens and can calm itself, co-regulate itself, process, sometimes release, sometimes just become more quiet. In my experience, both for professional caregivers, but also in daily life, these moments when this kind of connection happens effectively are all too often too rare. So we experience them as like these magical moments when this connection happens and some release happens or some co-regulation happens. But very often we don't know what did the trick. And in the practice that we're going to introduce you to today, we create a setting with very clear boundaries, very clear rules that makes it very safe for anyone, not just for professionals, but also for lay people, to turn to one another in such a way and to offer each other this kind of soothing support that is a very fundamental human movement, especially in times of distress. And one way to explain what happens is that every system has a limited emotional capacity as to what it can feel and what it can process. And when something severe happens, like what is happening in Israel right now, for most people, that is way beyond their individual personal capacity on an emotional level. So they can't feel it, they can't process it, they can't be with it. So the system just shuts down and goes numb. And that's good. It does that to protect itself from overwhelm, from going crazy. So that's a good mechanism. However, that's like a good first response. And as many of you will know, it's not a good permanent response. And what we need is we need to find ways in which we can take people slowly, slowly out of that numbness, out of that first shock, and create spaces, safe spaces, where they can process what is happening and what happened. And on a scale of traumatization, like is currently happening in Israel, where basically everyone is affected on some level, I don't see any other possibility except to have people turn towards each other, to have lay people to begin to support each other. And this is where the practice that we're introducing you to today is such an amazing tool, because your resources as caregivers are limited, and you are needed for the most traumatized, and they will need professional help. But what about everybody else? And I'm sure you've been overwhelmed, also like Tami and Tamara, with requests for support. So we're setting up this emotional safe space, which we'll tell you about later, as a daily offer where people can go, anyone can go, and they can find a place to learn this practice, to receive support, and to slowly, slowly process what is happening in their lives. I want to add one more thing before maybe we see if, Tami, there's something you want to add or ask. We have some experience now in Germany. One of the people studying with me, is also a therapist. She's working in a clinic, and she's working with complex traumatized patients. And she has set up like 2 regular practice groups with this practice, where the patients support each other. And they have found that for the highly complex traumatized patients, not only the support they receive is very, very important, but the support that they are able to give in the practice is equally healing and supporting for them. And this is one of the secrets of the practice, and why I feel the potential of the space that we're opening is so big, because we invite people both as people who are traumatized, who are wounded, who are overwhelmed, but also as people who have resources and who have something to give and to share. And this is immensely empowering. So with that, I want to give it to Tami, if there's anything you would like to add or ask.
Yeah, Vivian, I think that many people are really afraid to feel. Yeah. Sometimes on a regular level, but especially at this time, they say we have to function, we have to be on everything, we cannot be overwhelmed with feelings. Mm-hmm. So how can it be that it's going to be short and simple and not leave us with like open wounds and feelings going everywhere?
Yes, thank you for that question. So like I said, this mechanism of your psyche to shut off feelings is a healthy one. It's not about avoiding that mechanism. It's about respecting it, and at the same time opening certain spaces in the day where your system can slowly, slowly process. And the reason why it's safe is because we never force ourselves into feelings. We never try to pry ourselves open. We just give a space to be with ourselves, to feel what is there, even if that's numbness, to hear what is there, whatever thoughts are there, even if they seem really trivial. And this gives a space for the psyche that with time, especially, the psyche learns to really appreciate and to really use to recalibrate itself, because the system is incredibly intelligent. When we provide it with a space, it knows how to heal itself. And with this practice, we don't try to like heal it at once, but we try to do it step by step, by step, by step. And with time, we noticed that what seemed like we could never, ever, ever, ever get over this, we notice, okay, we're making progress and it's becoming more bearable and it's becoming more integrated. And I agree, you need to stay functional. The thing is that in this shutdown mode of the nervous system, when you're completely numb, there is a certain level of functionality that is maintained that is great for like emergency response. But it's a limited functionality. It's not a long-term solution. So you need to find ways and spaces for your system to slowly, slowly come to terms with what happened. And this might be a process of years, depending on what you experience, just to be really clear. But you will notice with each step of the way, the burden will lighten and parts of your vitality will come back to you. Parts of your humanness will come back to you. And you will be more functional. And maybe, Tammy, you can also share from your experience regarding functionality that actually the practice restores functionality rather than hindering.
That's what I've shared in Hebrew, how it restores my functionality and not the other way around. And you know, there's a say from our old wise Jewish, it's old wise Jewish wisdom that I'll say it in Hebrew and then I'll translate. It goes, אין עליך המלאכה לגמור, אך אין אתה בן חורים להיבטל ממנה, which means that you don't have to finish everything, but you cannot not do it. So it was a great relief for me when I realized, okay, I don't have to feel everything. I just have to make room and allow my system, which is apparently so amazing and so intelligent, just to just for a little bit of emotion to go as much as I can, actually. Yeah. And I have another question. On the other hand, people sometimes tell me, but I cannot feel anything.
Yes. I was about to say that, especially in a situation like this, like I said, it's normal and healthy not to feel. But what you will feel is numbness. And numbness is actually something that can be felt. It's a something. It's not that there is nothing, it's that there is a something, and it's like this. I like to compare it to like a cloud, or it's like a wall that protects you from everything that's too much. And if that's where you're at, it's good to respect that. And in the practice, just to give a space to be with that, to feel that numbness, to be with what is, where your system is right now, to be supported in that. And it's a little bit like the image I also like to use is like an ice block that slowly, slowly begins to melt. And in the beginning, maybe it's just a few drops, but it's also about your system learning how it can melt and how it can heal.
Yeah, you know, it's beautiful because, you know, when you compare it to something that is a freeze, then with the warmth of the other person, that's what melts it down. You know, it's like the human warmth that allows that to happen, which is amazing.
So let's talk about the practice briefly, because we're mentioning some things and maybe people are a little confused because they don't know what the practice looks like. So with the practice, we always practice minimum 2 people together. And this is because, like I said, as human beings, we're social beings and we need each other to process life. And what we do is we always have very clear roles where one person is in the supportive role and one person goes into the practice. And the person who's in the supportive role very much connects with their own heart. And this is really by physically also feeling this area in the center of your chest and really going to a place where you can, as best as you're able, see the unique beauty of whoever you're looking at. And really see them in their best light and see this is a person who's always in their own way done their best. You really see them with the heart. And you will maybe also notice there's a certain warmth that Tammy just mentioned that will be generated from your heart just by turning towards this person who might be a complete stranger in this way. And basically that is your task, that you are present for the other person in this way with your heart. And the other person is invited to accept that as much as feels appropriate to them in that moment. And they then have a space where they can turn towards whatever is currently happening in their system. And that can be numbness, that can be overwhelm, that can be a lot of thoughts, that can be anything. And the invitation is really to use the space, and it's always a fixed time. So we always have a very clear beginning of the practice, a clear end. They're invited to use this time to feel whatever is there. And in order to feel whatever is there, they can use words. For some people, it's very important to use words. Other people, when they use words, they actually get away from feeling. So it's something you need to experiment with. And a lot of the practice is about experimenting and getting to know your system. You might also use movement where you notice, okay, my body wants to, like, something wants to just move, or it might even want to shake. Like often after trauma, the nervous system actually needs to shake to release. That's a very healthy response of the nervous system. So you might want to just allow that. Or you might find that there is sounds that you want to make. And so it's a space for you to see how whatever is in your system wants to move. And your partner is simply there for you and does not say anything. Yeah, they're simply there giving you this space. And in order to make this safe, there is a third rule. So the first rule is clear roles. The second rule is clear time frame. The third rule is what we call a special confidentiality. And this special confidentiality means that whatever you express during this time stays in this time. Not only does your partner never talk to a third person about it, but they will also not talk to you about it again. This is very important. So whatever is expressed completely stays in this space and in this moment. And that makes it incredibly safe to simply allow whatever wants to move to move. So that's the practice, quite simply. You will, in a moment, have an opportunity to try it out if you want to. If you feel it's not for me right now, you're welcome to come back another time to experience it. We will be offering this on a daily basis starting Saturday. For now, is there anything, Tammy, that you would like to add from your
experience? I was looking at the questions, and they were asking, what does it mean to hold, and what does it mean when the person is holding space for another one? Mm-hmm. And what does the holder do?
So what the holder does is what I described, that they are connected with their heart. And for me, it's often helpful to actually place my hand there. So you might want to do that. And also before we practice, Vanessa will lead you in a short meditation to get you into that space. And then you're simply present. So what that means is you look at the other person. You'll be in breakout sessions, 2 people. You look at the other person and you are simply present as much as you're able. So you feel your body, you're present with your breath, you're connected with your heart, and you have a loving gaze that is resting on the other person, who is thereby given a space where they can process to the best of their ability whatever wants to be processed by their system in this moment.
Okay.
And then, wait, there was one more thing I didn't mention. We always practice where we switch roles. So first, one person offers this heart space and the other person has a space to process, and then we switch roles. And this is very, very important. Sometimes people say, but right now I'm fine, I'm not in distress, I don't need to practice, I can just give support. We highly encourage people to always do both roles. Or sometimes people will say, I'm too distressed, I can't offer support. Especially then, the recommendation is to do both roles, because there's something about doing both, about really going into your weakness, into your darkness, into your numbness, into your overwhelm. That's one role. And then to go into your heart and into your support and into your love and into your resources. And both together make a whole. And you will notice you come out of the practice balanced.
And I think that is super important. And that's one of the answers for my question. How comes this practice is not going to be, it's not going to be overwhelming?
Yes. So what makes it really safe, like I said, is the 3 rules and the fact that we don't use any techniques to try to provoke any emotional expression. We simply give space to what is there. And you will notice your system is just waiting for this. And very often people don't have this kind of space, even with their loved ones. Very often in situations like this, they will try to protect their loved ones from the intensity of pain that they have in themselves. So often it will be easier and safer to practice with a stranger and to really give space to what's there than to burden our family members who are maybe also under severe distress. So this is another reason why I feel it's very good we're offering the space where we can form a community of practice. And like Tamara and Tami mentioned, we offered a similar space in Ukraine with Ukrainian partners. And the results were really, really positive. People reported that they were able to find peace again and again amidst war. And they were able to recenter and regenerate in order to face what they had to face.
I'm looking at the questions. I want to emphasize 2 things. We'll have, after the practice, we'll be answering questions, but
Yes.
there's one question that it's repeating itself and it may be important to answer. If it's a practice that a therapist will do with his patient.
Mm-hmm. So I've trained many therapists, and they report that with time, it completely transforms their work. So it doesn't mean that they use it one-to-one, this practice with their clients, because the therapist-client relationship is a different one. This is a peer-to-peer self-help method. And it's highly appreciated by therapists, and both to regulate themselves, like Tami shared, but also to empower their clients to actively take part in their own emotional self-care, so that as therapists, they can do other stuff with them. And one of the things that we're hoping, and that's why we invited many therapists and caregivers today, is that we'll be able to offer also a program that we also offer to Ukrainian therapists and caregivers, where you will also then be able to pass this to the people you're working with, so that we can create a movement of people holding each other, supporting each other, and getting away from this model where everything needs to be done by professionals, because it's just not possible on the scale of traumatization that is present.